Am I the only one that feels that things are kind of weird in Canada post-election? I mean, I understand that Conservatives lost and that the leader got his head cut off politically. I get that. But it just still feels kind of weird. The news site, it feels like we're in the eye of the storm. And after May 26, once the House resumes, if they even kind of go back to question period or Parliament, it just feels weird. I don't know how to describe it. I probably should have thought more about this before I clicked record on the computer, but it just feels like we're heading into a wave of maybe more censorship than we've ever experienced before, more spending than we've ever experienced before, more dictatorship than we've ever experienced before, and everything is just going to be swept under the rug like it's never been done before. That's kind of maybe what I'm trying to get across. I've talked to some close friends about this, and they also share that sentiment, but I just kind of want to pass the question off to you right out the gate. Are you feeling the same thing? Like, it just feels like it's in the air, you know? It feels like there's something weird going on. And that's not because of my allergies to pollen. That's just because of, politically speaking, it feels like we're absolutely screwed. So, yeah, off to a doom and gloom start. But I just want to know how you guys are feeling. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Does it really help grow the channel? We got quite the slate today. Man, oh man, Mark Carney is spending taxpayers' money to not only go himself to Rome to meet the new pope, but also bring other MPs under the guise of it's a religious trip. It's a religious vacation. So that's kind of weird, but it's still happening. He's also meeting with Zelensky to probably give him more money. Oh my goodness, how much more? How much more money? How much more money are we really going to give him? And isn't Putin supposed to have a phone call with Trump tomorrow or something like that to try to end the war? So why is Mark Carney not taking that into consideration? Why is he meeting with Zelensky right now when supposedly the war is hopefully going to be over very, very soon with the USA stepping in? We also have an update on the recounts that are happening. There are a tremendous amount, surprisingly, but not surprisingly, of recounts taking place across the country. So I'm sure there's nothing wrong or sketchy about that at all. Danielle Smith also says that it's her job for Alberta not to separate. I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Is she like playing the field politically, or is this some 5D chess thing, or is she actually against separatism? I'll leave that up to your interpretation after we watch the clip. And then Canada Post is once again on strike. I don't know what's going on. Every year they go on strike. It's a little bit earlier this year than normal, but they're going on strike again. And in fact, they're trying to remove door-to-door deliveries every single day, maybe 2-3 times a week. What the heck's wrong with Canada? Like, we can't even figure out a good postal service. Why would anyone want to use Canada Post for anything ever when they're on strike literally every year? Sort yourselves out. You guys just went on strike last year, put up a huge stink, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. It just, not that Canada Post sets the precedent for the rest of Canada, but kind of just feels like our country is broken from all angles. So yeah, happy weekend, everybody. This is a very positive video. Without further ado, let's get right into the video, starting off with Mark Carney jet setting to go meet the Pope and Zelensky.
The Prime Minister has landed in Rome and has meetings with world leaders ahead of attending Pope Leo XIV's inaugural Mass tomorrow. Carney brought his wife and his daughter Cleo on this trip. His first meetings today are with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, as well as the Italian President. For the newly elected Prime Minister, it is the first time he will meet both of them in person. Other meetings with world leaders are also expected this weekend, as well as an audience with the Pope on Sunday after the inaugural Mass. Carney is himself a practicing Catholic. A senior government source tells CTV News his faith played into his decision to attend this weekend, but that it's also about the opportunity to connect with other world leaders attending the event as well. Foreign affairs experts tell CTV News the meetings in Rome are an important relation-building opportunity ahead of Canada hosting the G7 next month in Alberta. Joining Carney on this trip is a 19-person delegation, including MPs, senators, and representatives of Indigenous groups. The inaugural Mass is expected to draw as many as 200,000 people to St. Peter's Square Sunday. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Rome.
The Prime Minister sat down with Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission.
I want to thank you for your leadership, the European Union's leadership, the close partnership we have between Canada and the European Union, and, if I may, at a time when the world is more dangerous and divided, a partnership that is ever more important and I hope that can continue to grow.
Ottawa has been working on strengthening its relationship with European allies in light of Donald Trump's tariff and annexation threats. Ukraine has also been a hot topic. Earlier this week, leaders of the European Union expressed full support for Ukraine, confirming new packages of sanctions against Russia. The Prime Minister also sat down with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Many important issues to discuss, very fluid situation. And one last point, I very much look forward to welcoming the President to Canada in less than a month for the G7 summit.
This is the first time the two leaders are meeting face-to-face since Carney became Prime Minister. Although Ukraine is not a G7 member, Carney has invited Zelensky to next month's G7 summit being hosted in Alberta.
I'd love to go, what? I'd love to. I do that too many times. Sometimes it feels natural. Sometimes I mess it up. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that clip. And also, let's just play a guessing game. How much money is Canada going to give to Ukraine? Another billion, another 3 billion, another 5 billion. Let me know your guesses down below. Now we're going to take a look at something that's totally not sketchy. All of the recounts happening across the country and the potential liberal majority that we may be facing. Here we go.
We are still waiting for results in a federal election vote recount in the rural Newfoundland riding of Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. The judicial recount has been underway since Tuesday, and another one is also set to start in Ontario's Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore on May 20th. Earlier this week, a recount confirmed a Liberal win in Milton East, Halton Hills South. Meanwhile, the recount in Terrebonne flipped the results in the favor of the Liberals. And let's bring in our CTV News political commentator, Scott Reed. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Morning, Roger.
What are we expecting, do you think, from these recounts?
You know, it could go any way. I mean, we're talking about very narrow margins. So when they do the recounts and, you know, what that involved, just be really specific, because there'll have been a number of ballots that will have been rejected in these ridings, as in all ridings across the country. But when you get a very narrow result and you get a recount, they'll look at all those rejected ballots. It's not just math. They'll say, all right, now, was the person who cast this ballot making their intention clear? So if somebody, you know, threw it out because it was scribbled in as opposed to an X, they may decide actually it's crystal clear here who they were voting for. So they'll go through that process. So when you're talking about one vote in Terrebonne, when you're talking about 12 votes in Newfoundland, 77 votes in Windsor, you know, really a thorough recount could produce almost any result.
Could we see a by-election, do you think, in Terrebonne, with how that unfolded, with reports that some mail-in ballots never made it?
I'd be surprised if you ended up with that kind of result. But look, it's a challenging situation because it's a riding that's swinging on one vote. And no matter whether that vote goes for you or against you, when you can identify that, you know, there are 3-4 ballots at least that we're conscious of that, you know, maybe weren't counted or didn't make it, it got returned late. You know, that's going to create real frustrations. The Bloc are talking about taking this to the courts. There's already been a judicial recount. Elections Canada says, I think correctly, that doesn't really exist as a mechanism. At some point, you know, the ref has to blow the whistle and say, we're done here. We've done a recount. We've done a judicial recount. We may be conscious of, you know, challenges that occurred, but the rules are the rules. The result is the result. And that may be unsatisfying, but at some point you do have to just drop the curtain.
We need a video replay. Go upstairs to the head office. When Parliament resumes sitting, it's coming up quick. What's it going to look like?
It's going to be very interesting because we're going to have a very short period of time. This is going to be 6 weeks that they'll be sitting. The Prime Minister's indicated, you know, speaking with Vashi Kapels earlier this week, he's saying, listen, we're going to go hard. And he wants to bring in a throne speech. He wants to put in a Ways and Means motion, which is technical parliamentary speak for an economic and financial motion, which means that we'll be able to get a tax cut by July 1st. There'll be other legislation that no doubt they'll want to at least initiate in this session. One thing we know is we're not going to get a budget which is an interesting choice. We're not even going to get a financial statement. I think the government will find itself under a lot of pressure persistently over that issue. But we'll be experiencing in Parliament what we've experienced as a country over the course of the past 4 months, which is constant, rapid, head-turning politics. That's what I would expect.
I'm sure that there's nothing sketchy there going on, just slowly creeping their way to a majority government weeks and weeks and weeks after the election has been called. Is that weird? Like, I'm only 31 years old, so I don't know if I've lived long enough to see that many elections, but I don't know if it's ever been this meticulous, like this long for ballot counting and recounts. Like, what's the wait time? Is it like 30 days and then a decision just has to be made? Can they be recounting things for 60 days, 90 days? Like, it just kind of, it's starting to get a little creepy and a little weird. I got the weird spidey senses that are tingling about this, but maybe I'm alone. Maybe you agree with that. Let me know what you guys think. Then we're getting into Alberta separatism, specifically Danielle Smith sit down one-on-one with Vashi. It's just a short little clip. And what she says is kind of shocking. Here we go.
We've got 30 to 40% of Albertans polled saying that they are dissatisfied with the country to the point where they would consider it. And my job is to try to bring those numbers down. That's what I'm doing. That's why I have been told by my caucus and by the people that I speak with to give this new Prime Minister a chance.
If the vote is yes, would you pursue separation as Premier?
I have always said that I do not support separation. I support Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada. That's what our party supports as well as in our statement of principles. It's what my caucus supports. And that's my marching orders.
So do I take that even if the vote is yes, that you would not pursue separation in your capacity as Premier?
My job is to make sure it doesn't get to yes. My job is to make sure it doesn't get to yes.
I would really like to know what you guys think about that clip. Do you think that it's her playing the field? Do you think it's some 5D chess thing? Is it Danielle Smith really just being upfront, saying that she doesn't support separatism and it's her job to make sure that Alberta doesn't separate? I'd love to know what you guys think down below. There's a lot of theories floating around there, but again, it'd be just cool to know what the community thinks. Now we got to talk about Canada Post. Sit back, relax, and get angry. But please don't take it out on me. Let's take a look at our Crown subsidized corporation that sends envelopes that can't figure out their shit. Here we go.
Canada Post should end door-to-door letter mail delivery. That's the recommendation of a report from the Industrial Inquiry Commission. The report was ordered in December by then Labour Minister Steve McKinnon as he ordered an end to the labour dispute. The report is now public and it suggests transformational change at the Crown Corporation. As I mentioned, it recommends ending daily door-to-door letter delivery for individuals, but it does recommend keeping it for businesses. It also suggests lifting the moratoriums on the closure of rural post offices and conversions to community mailboxes. The president and CEO of Canada Post, Doug Ettinger, released a statement that reads in part, "We welcome the report's recommendations and will work with our bargaining agents and our shareholder, the Government of Canada, to address our challenges and secure a sustainable path forward." The newly minted Jobs Minister, Patty Hajdu, also released a statement today saying the report highlights the main issues that are holding up getting to an agreement and offers a way forward. She added, "It's time for everyone to put aside their differences, focus on shared goals, and ensure a strong postal system now and into the future." We did ask both the minister and someone from the Crown Corporation to come on the program today, but both declined our invitation. We are happy, though, to have the Canadian Union of Postal Workers negotiator, Jim Gallant, with us. Thanks for being here once again.
Thanks for having us on.
So I guess the first question is your reaction to that report because of what it is saying and what it needs to do, especially that recommendation of ending door-to-door delivery service.
Well, we're disappointed, but not surprised. There's no doubt that the government ordered this report, paid for this report, and likely had some expectations of the report. Mm-hmm. So we went to this commission, and it looks like what the report does is dismisses everything that the union said and the hundreds of submissions from municipalities, the public, Indigenous communities, and charities, because the report shows that all of those entities agreed with the union, but the report does not agree with the union. It agrees with the employer.
And it disagrees on some of the key things that you guys were saying going into this, notably that the issues facing Canada Post are the result of mismanagement, or that the current financial situation, I'm quoting from it here, has been manufactured for tactical reasons. They say that that is completely false. What do you say to that?
I say that during the commission, Canada Post provided no evidence of any of their problems. We were asked to cost things when Canada Post was not. And the Commission seems to have relied totally on Canada Post's financial reports, which are audited. There's no doubt of that. Mm-hmm. But if you go out and buy 10,000 vehicles, that passes the audit because you actually have 10,000 vehicles. The problem is you only needed 1,000 vehicles to run the business that year. And you bought 9,000 to make sure that your money is depleted. At that point, there's no money for Christmas gifts, right?
It's nice of somebody to get up and talk to the media and explain full transparency what's going on and all of the negotiations and stuff like that. But why? Why can't they figure it out? This isn't normal behavior from a company ever at all. A normal company can just figure out what's wrong, solve it, and if there's protests or, like people just don't want to go to work, then they figure it out, they fire them, and they continue business as usual. Canada doesn't have that. Canada is so focused on feelings. It doesn't feel right. Things aren't feeling right. So let's take years and years to figure it out and air everything publicly. I just don't know what is Canada Post's problem. Maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I'm uneducated enough in it. But it's supposed to be a functioning part of our country. And it's really proving to be more of a burden than anything else. So I'd love to know what you guys think down below. But there is a little bit more. So let's get through it.
And I take your point on that, but it's still sides with Canada Post in saying that that their financial situation is not something that they did essentially to manufacture to create this crisis, and that is something that your union has been saying from the get-go. They basically reject that argument out of hand.
They do. The Commission rejects that submission of the union, but doesn't investigate Canada Post to do it.
So do you think that this Commission was not thorough enough?
This Commission wasn't thorough enough, and the union has been saying that from the beginning. A mandate review is what needs to be done when it comes to Canada Post. Mandate reviews have been done in the past, and it allows for public submissions by the union, and it allows for a more thorough investigation of what's going on and what the lay of the land is at that juncture.
But reviews were specifically underlined in this report. They said that there have been a number of reviews. I think it was about 4 in the last 6 to 10 years. And they say another review is not necessary. We are at a tipping point here. Do not take that point that another review isn't necessary because Canada Post is essentially at a fiscal cliff here.
When you look back, it goes back to, in this report, it goes back to some reviews that were done by different boards, and we end up with facts that were in those reports that were wrong. Conference Board of Canada is one of the ones that did a report. Mm-hmm. Those numbers are not right. It's not that anybody lied. It's just that the numbers in the reports were wrong. So you start with a report that was wrong and then you build on that report. That's not helpful to the situation. So we need to see what the real lay of the land is. And the report is exactly what we were told was going to be in the report before it started. We heard that these things were going to be in a report, things about part-time employees and things about weekend delivery. We heard that in January before the commission started.
I'm trying to understand, because I think Canadians will sit there and say that there's been a number of reports, and you continue to say that you're discounting those reports because they're not based on fact or not on the right numbers. But I think Canadians are looking at this and saying, but this is the same story that we've heard for years and years and years and years. And they continue to think, well, somebody's got to fix Canada Post. So how can you contend that so many reports are wrong?
Well, it has been for years and years. And for years and years, it was proven that they were wrong, because they said that we were going to be in $1 billion loss situation by the year 2000 or 2020. Mm-hmm. None of that came to fruition, and the pandemic pushed, and there was a pay equity complaint that was settled in 2020, and then COVID comes along, and every entity in the country hurt for those couple of years, mm-hmm. and none of that's taken into account by the Commission. We don't see any of that reported. And those were hard years for every business, and Canada Post as a service, we were all at work every day. So, and people that were, older, somebody over 70 that was still working, they were home with pay. And those sorts of things hurt the corporation, there's no doubt, for years. So, but it wasn't taken into account by the Commission, and that's not the lay of the land today. What happened 3 years ago should be taken into account, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But we need to see a way forward, and that's what the union's trying to do. We're talking about weekend delivery. We're talking about what part-time employees are and how many we have now.
So are you open to that? Because that is something that this report says needs to be factored in, that weekend delivery by part-time employees has to be part of it. And that was something that, if I'm not mistaken, you were sitting here and saying, no, that's a non-starter a few months ago. And
the report doesn't report that part-time employees already work, temporary employees work about 4 to 6 million hours a year, and part-time employees work more than that. So the total employment is about 80% full-time, and there's 20% that are part-time and temporary employees. So they already have lots of flexibility.
Yeah, I feel like Canada Post is hated by so many people already that the longer this goes on, the more kind of unstable Canada Post seems to be, which, hey, they check the golden box. They win the gold in that Olympic sport. I feel like they're just going to lose public trust, and you're going to start to see people just naturally boycott Canada Post and not want anything to do with them anyways, and then kind of just go bankrupt. But we'll have to wait and see how that does play out. This is the end of the video, though. I'd love to know what you guys think about any of the topics that were covered. And as always, if you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys one last time, hit the like button on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in another one. Bye for now.